For nerds, humanists, liberals, and especially atheists, learning new things and dreams of a brighter, wondrous future full of new technologies, civics, and discoveries gets us super excited and helps us get out of bed every morning. For people just 150 years ago, especially if you were poor, the future didn't look much better than the past did. The further back you went, even less so. Golden Age syndrome, in fact, often made the world seem to be getting worse. The further back you go in time, the slower new technologies were to be developed and propagate. Other than survival, what did you have to motivate you and keep your group together? Stories. And pretty much all of these stories were passed down by oral tradition, and the art of storytelling, acting, and retelling by a priest was about the past. They were prophecies of the future, but they were also about the rise and fall of great leaders, or, as a Golden Age syndrome logically led them, how the world would end. Never about some new technological breakthrough that would change their society and how they viewed reality. So they never developed that part of their minds needed to deal with that kind of change. Seasons would come and go, famines, droughts, disease, plagues, death, disaster, birth, prosperous times, intoxication, sex, violence, and family were all on a cycle. Daily we would look on our Facebook pages or in the news and learn new things about the past, present, and possible future for inspiration and gossip, and the past filled that need back then. Without writing, oral traditions were the most history they had. The occasional trader or traveler would pass by with a story or history, and you would integrate that. People looked to the elders as the keepers of history, and elders almost always worshiped the past with complete reverence, and as something that is always best. Without anything to protect against bias, it was really the best they had, and they had a strong worship of the past, holding their rituals passed down for generations to feel connected to their ancient ancestors. Some religions throughout history, such as Zoroastrianism, Norse paganism, Christianity, parts of Hinduism, and others, gave people for the first time the idea that this life is just the beginning. They gave a firm, predictive future to work toward and look forward to. Very vague but wonderful, for them. That moved religion from just being about now and the past, but that their drudgery and constant cycle would someday be broken for a utopian future. These religions at the time may have possibly reinforced the power of what could be as opposed to what is. But they were still very strong past worshippers in holding the traditions of the past. The Gutenberg printing press allowed intellectuals of specific social classes the ability to be book nerds and dream of what could be. In the early 1800s, the useful arts, kept as trade secrets for all of time, began to be treated as something a lot of people should know, and from that came technology. From that, science also really picked up. Those two hand in hand led people beginning more and more to imagine a future of prosperity beyond measure and what could be. But the amount was still fairly tiny, as most people were subsistence farmers and viewed much of technology as something only the elites would get, and they would not benefit from it, as it's always been throughout time. Lyceums at the turn of the 20th century used for intellectual speaking tours for the masses, then radio, then television, then space travel, led more and more and more people imagining both the future and what could be, but they still kept a continued worship of the past. However, many of these people were viewed as nerds, eggheads, dreamers with their heads in the clouds, back when nerd was viewed as a bad thing, stereotypically socially awkward or disconnected from reality, and the common man, and therefore made fun of, and often treated as a lesser person, a loser. On the bus growing up, kids were aghast and appalled that I was reading when I didn't have to, and I was doing it for fun, and I was reading books like mythology and Lord of the Rings, nerd stuff. Then the internet changed everything. It was slow but steady, and new information came at lightning speed. Ideas of the future and reshaping how we viewed the past became the new norm. People who laughed at me for being a nerd became nerd-obsessed themselves. We began seeing the past in a much less biased way, and saw a much clearer picture from thousands more viewpoints. The past really wasn't better at all, and anyone who actually understands history knows that while they may enjoy visiting the past, they sure as hell wouldn't want to be stuck there. This began killing the worship and blind reverence for the past as being better. They began to use the mental energy they used on staying dedicated to the past and maintaining a link to it, to attempting a more accurate, yet more blasphemous link to the past, and a strong, tight link to the future, with a fear as of old, but with a new hope only known to previous afterlife religions. Science is replacing that part of our minds that used to involve religion, and we're much more skeptical of both the past, present, and future, while reveling in their wonder. Science has its cults and false prophets, but they only tend to last a few years, and they and their bad ideas get eliminated over time because the internet keeps informing us if we keep learning and looking for different sources. All religions were made to help you deal with death. The prospect of not dying is now something younger people may have to face. The idea of living and making the world a place you want to live in for hundreds of years is now more important to some than living now and making sure they're ready for death. We have an amazing future to look forward to. We understand our past better than anyone before us. Let's explore it together and make our own rituals and fun that tie us to our past, the here and now, and hopefully our skeptical future.